Quick disclaimer before you listen. The World's Okayest Medic Podcast is an educational and commentary platform produced and recorded by me. What we say on here is not endorsed by any of our employers, and we are not speaking on behalf of our employers. Our commentary is our own. Finally, remember to follow your local protocols.
All right, people. I am exhausted. I think this is going to be a quick episode. I wrote this today. I am absolutely exhausted. I just got off of 24 hours of working flight. 0 dispatches. I find being slow like that is so much more exhausting than running your ass off for an entire shift. I much prefer to be busy. Also trying something new tonight. I had my Sony camera that I used hooked up, ready to go to do this episode, and the battery was running a little low. This is a ZV-1. People ask what I use. I do love this little camera. It is a little bit laggy and grainy when it comes to USB streaming with the Descript app that I use, not to go like too nerd in depth with the content creation stuff. So the battery was running a little low. So I am using my iPhone as the camera, and looking at the screen on Descript right now, I have to say that I think I like it better. And I had to fix my microphone. I had it to the recording setting from when Ashley and I were both recording so it could pick us both up. Now I have it just to the one person setting. Lots of technical difficulties. But today I got a couple of messages, and I've gotten similar messages over the last few days, and really in the 5+ years now that I've been doing the podcast, asking how can I get on a flight team? I want to be a flight medic, blah, blah, blah. So this is going to be one of those episodes that I do that is in response to the questions that I get asked repeatedly. And the 2 questions that I'm going to tackle, they're both related. They are intertwined with each other. The first question is, someday I want to go into a flight job. Do you have any recommendations for courses that I should take or certifications I should get to make me more marketable? The second question is, I have an interview for a flight team coming up. Do you have any recommendations for how I can succeed? As per usual, my usual disclaimer applies. This podcast will not be for everyone. This is my opinion based on my years of experience and knowledge of the biz, if you will. You don't have to agree with me. Flight nurse X or flight medic Y in a different part of the country, or even at the next base over from me, may listen to this and say, I didn't agree with any of that. I can't believe he would say that. Don't listen to a word Mike Caruncio says. That is fine. This is just my opinion. I don't usually deep dive into comments on my stuff on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Not that I have uploaded to TikTok in months because I think it is a cesspool of idiocy. I don't really look at the comments. I see them from time to time. Sometimes I look at them. I loosely follow them, but I don't keep up with them. But I did happen to see one comment on a YouTube video that I did, and I saw it this morning, and it said that I was unnecessarily sarcastic and angry. Now, I'm not sure if I agree that I was angry in that video about flash pulmonary edema, but sarcastic, quite possibly, which is part of my beaming persona that you all love so much and keep tuning in to listen to. If you are new to the podcast and you get offended easily, maybe don't listen to this episode. But I think that the people who know me and follow the content that I put out and trust what I have to say and want to hear my opinion, I think you know that you're going to get real information. And while it may not be touchy-feely, it's going to be honest. And it is going to be what I consider to be the real deal, how it is. And while I am very direct and honest, I want to make sure that I am not trying to purposefully offend anyone here. I do know that there are some professional bear pokers and many provocateurs out there, and that's not my intention. Now, I'm not too worried about people getting offended by what I say, but I am not out there to specifically provoke anyone. Unless you're from MPDS. But what I'm trying to do on this podcast and on the whole platform in general is just keep it real. And that's what I'm going to try to do when I talk about how to get on to a flight team. Also, let me reiterate that I am not representing my current flight team here. I am not an official representative, And the commentary that I offer on the podcast is based on a compendium of experiences, from being a line flight guy who sat in on a couple of interviews to being a supervisor, from interacting with multiple flight teams from across the country in my capacity as an instructor, getting to know flight teams and their administrators through doing the podcast and bouncing ideas off of each other. And frankly, this is insight from just me being around the block a time or two. So what I think I'm going to give you is the real tea. I'm also not going to give you some milquetoast answer or some vanilla pro forma answer like, take PHTLS. That will really prepare you for the hot traumas. Lies. Or you should take an Impella CEU class. That 1 hour of content is really going to prepare you for taking cardiac ICU patients. Now, Gwenny offers webinars. She calls them Flight Curious. I told her it sounds like a support group for bi-curious teenagers, and being the Midwestern Christian that she is, she was like, what's that mean? But I joke, she does offer these webinars that she puts on from time to time to help guide people in her method of communication for setting people up for a flight job and how they can be successful. And I would recommend that you check her out. But what I'm going to give you again is what I think is the real tea, the raw tea, if you will. So I've been rambling now. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. Let me tackle the first question. There is no magic concoction of courses, books to read, or certifications other than already having FPC or CFRN that's going to make you more marketable for a flight job. Taking an FPC or a CFRN review course is great. I think you should do it. I think that you do benefit anyway, even if you don't want to do flight, because you are challenging yourself with new, difficult material. But it's not like some firefighter medic is going to show up to an interview and say, well, I did the online or even in-person insert education company name critical care course, and the hiring panel's socks are going to be knocked off. Like, oh, damn. He, she, or they, them did 40 hours of online education. Put them on a helicopter now. And as far as canned courses, yes, many programs do require NRP, PHTLS, advanced burn life support. It is incumbent upon you to research the position that you want and then go get those required canned courses. I had somebody ask me today, I want to be a flight nurse. What are the qualifications? And I was like, you have to Google it, dude. Find the job that you want. Find the job posting and go through the bullet points. Those are the qualifications. There's really nothing special to it. So as far as the canned courses, I think that most of the canned courses are really not that valuable when it comes to helping you be a good clinician. Yeah, decent foundational knowledge, maybe a good review when you take a research class. But past that, I think they're just qualification checkboxes that you need to have to get a flight job. It is a fact that if you show up to an interview and it plainly says on the job description, NRP certification required for this position, and you don't have NRP, unless you show up and they're really nice and they give you some leeway and you say, hey, I saw this class is required. I don't have the certification, but I am signed up for the course and I take it in 2 weeks, then don't bother applying for a job for which you don't have the necessary qualifications. If something is required, there's really not a way around it if you don't have that qualification. Which brings me to FPC and CFRN, which I have talked about ad nauseum on this podcast. Yes, FPC and CFRN will certainly help to make you a more marketable candidate over someone who does not have those certifications. It will not guarantee, though, that you get the job, but it will help. Now, the people at the IACCP or whatever it's called now and ASTNA, they may shake their heads in disgust when I say this, but FPC and CFRN guarantee virtually nothing about you knowing how to be a flight EMS provider. It just means that you passed the test. I know plenty of non-flight, non-critical care paramedics who wanted the cert, they wanted the extra letters after their name, they studied for it, and they passed the test. I would guarantee you that if you took those people who simply just studied for and passed the test, and then you put them in an ICU room with a patient who is getting ECPella and they're on 10,000 drips and you have only 9 pumps, they're going to be absolutely lost, despite having FPC or CFRN after their name, and whether they wear that cheap pullover that the BCEN gives you if you get all of the certs that they offer. I say that FPC and CFRN are helpful for when you apply to a flight team strictly because it's one less thing that the admins need to worry about with you. Most teams require that you get your respective disciplines advanced certification a year from hire. And if you have it already, that's going to be someone who they don't need to worry about being in the what is a quite common and quite unfortunate situation of, well, I've been on the team for 10 months. I think I'm doing a good job. Everybody likes me, but I failed the certification exam twice and I only have one more attempt to take it before they fire me. So that's it. The advanced cert, as laudable as it may be, and it is, but in the grand scheme of getting hired, it is just a check in a checkbox. A sizable checkbox that, if checked, will make your life easier, and more importantly, for the sake of the interview and you getting onto the team, will make the boss's life easier if you already have it. But it is not required. Most teams don't require you to have it to get hired, and they give you a year to pass. So here's the real tea. If you want to be prepared and marketable for a flight job, be good at your job. Reputation goes a long way. Word of mouth travels fast. If you are a slug or you have a bad attitude or you're not a team player, you're not a nice person, or you're lazy, that's going to provide a big hill for you to overcome, as it should. Now, the bosses on flight teams will usually feel out the staff. They know that EMS is a small community and that somebody on the flight team is invariably going to know the applicant or know someone who knows of the applicant, and they can do a little intelligence gathering. I have seen people knocked off of the bring them in for an interview list simply because the boss asks Flight Medic Bob, hey, do you know Jim Smith? He's a paramedic. He applied for the open flight medic spot. And Flight Medic Bob says, yeah, I know him. He's a dick. Don't hire him. Or, oh, you don't want to have the truck after he had it. It's always a disaster. Good medic, good clinical provider, but when it comes to anything that's not patient care related, he's lazy. Not good. Am I saying that word of mouth recommendation or non-recommendation is fair or that it's okay? No, I'm not. What I am saying, though, is that is often how it is. Reputation is huge. I should say, though, because not to be overly negative, because some people do accuse me of being overly negative, that I have just as frequently seen the opposite and word of mouth benefit the applicant. I've definitely seen people apply that, yeah, on paper, they meet the minimum qualifications, but if you are going by years of experience and just the resume stuff, letters after their name, maybe they don't stand out compared to other applicants. But they get an interview or maybe even get onto the team because somebody vouches for them and says, oh yeah, I know her. Yeah, she's younger. She's only got 5 years as a nurse and has no flight or critical care transport experience, but she is amazing. She's enthusiastic. She's smart. She's a team player, yada, yada, yada. Reputation, work ethic, being good at your craft goes farther than any canned course or certification. So what specific experience do you need? I do get asked this a lot, and it really depends on the team. Some teams want highly experienced critical care clinicians that they're really not going to have to train clinically. Other teams will hire anyone with a pulse or a patch. Do your homework. Reach out to the team that you're applying for. Email the boss or find someone who's actually on the team and ask, hey, what are they looking for as far as applicants? Do some recon. What is on the job posting is HR generated drivel. Yes, you have to meet all of those qualifications or HR will not let you be considered. You do have to clear those hurdles, but reach out and ask, hey, team, what are you looking for? Do they want past flight experience? Do they want past critical care transport experience? If you're a nurse and you work in the hospital, do they want you to be an EMT or have some EMS experience? Or are they the type of team like the last team that I was on, and they just want a nurse who is a good nurse with good ICU or ER experience? Or if you're a medic, they just want a good medic with a good reputation and a few years of solid experience in a busy system. And they bring you on, they handle the critical care orientation, they handle the flight training. good to go. It can only help to ask. Plus, it gets your name out there and it lets the bosses know that you are someone who does your homework, someone who goes the extra step, if you will, somebody who is methodical, thinks things out. Those are good qualities. And the managers are going to go, I like this person already. So now let's progress to the interview. I have talked about all of and I've done some reels, I've done some content, YouTube videos on this, all of the be confident in your answers, know your craft, don't be afraid to show off your knowledge, but still be humble. Don't be a prick during your interview. I've said all of that stuff. That all certainly applies. Show off that you know your stuff, but don't be a know-it-all. Wear a suit. Don't show up in a Phillies hat and an untucked t-shirt, blah, 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 which is all valid, important things to know going into an interview, but that's also vanilla stuff. I will say, though, that if you need me to tell you that you should wear a suit to a job interview and that you should be confident in the answers that you give, then you are behind the eight ball, not just in getting a flight job, but life in general. Yes. Now, my team, we do an interview with the boss, and then if you pass that, you then pass on to a panel interview with the team, and then you go to a clinical interview with the medical directors. My old team, you started off straight up with a panel interview, and then if the panel passed you, you went on to the medical directors. I don't know how other teams do it, but yes, certainly we are evaluating your clinical knowledge, maybe skill performance in sim, decision-making ability, and the ability to perform in demanding high-stress situations. But real world, the purpose of the interview is largely twofold past that clinical stuff. One is for the managers. And simply put, they're looking to evaluate, is this person going to be a pain in the ass to manage? If yes, no thanks. If they don't seem like they will be a pain in the ass, as long as they don't bomb the panel interview or the clinical portion of the interview, they will likely move on to the next step. The other purpose is for the team. This is for the team to evaluate, is this the type of person we want to bring into our small group of specialized clinicians? And is this someone who is going to jive with us? Is this someone we are going to want to spend a large chunk of our lives with in cramped quarters in a job where some days there is a ton of downtime? And like it or not, sorry, HR drones, but this is why I'm no longer in a management position. It's all about the vibe and whether the person clicks or not with the team. This is also where I think the bulk of the people who may get offended by what I'm going to say in this episode are going to get offended. I don't know what it is about this profession, but we have a very sizable population of weirdos in EMS, and they often come out in droves to apply for flight spots. This is where self-awareness comes into play. If you are naturally not blessed with charisma, or you are an arrogant prick, you're abnormally introverted, or you're one of these people who marches to the beat of your own drummer, and which is fine, but you're also the type who wants everybody to know that you march to the beat of your own drummer. Can you tame it just for today, just for the interview? Case in point, we had a guy who showed up with his chest puffed out, and he was gloating and gloating about all of the accolades and awards he has gotten doing EMS simulation games. Man, I bet the panties fall right off when you walk into a room, dude. Is it getting hot in here? Is it just me? Big whoop. Another case in point, and sorry, this might cause some heartburn for some. This was not on my team, but this was someone who I am close with, was conducting interviews for a job, and literally right out of the gate, this applicant said that I, as a person, am blah, 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 and what will your organization do to support me? No thanks. Now, this has nothing to do with who the person is as a human being, because we love everybody. Rather, it has everything to do with the fact that this applicant has, without prompting or coaxing, identified themselves as somebody who is very likely to be a pain in the ass. No thanks. We have decided to go in another direction. Another story. This wasn't for a flight team job, but it does illustrate the self-awareness and the what were you thinking point I'm trying to make. So the cops on the SWAT team I was on were telling me that they once had a medic apply for a spot on the team. And during the interview, this medic mentioned how he was a prepper, which is fine. And then he began talking about all of the guns he has stashed in different places in case of the apocalypse that he thinks is coming, which is perfectly legal in these here parts. But the cops were like, who is this weirdo? And fuck no, do we want him on our special weapons and tactics team? No, thanks. I could go on and on with the stories. The lesson is that self-awareness is key. I know a guy. That's what we say on the East Coast. I know a guy. He's a great guy, and he is smart as a whip. He has we will call it a non-traditional haircut, and he has a bunch of face and neck tattoos. He's wonderful. He's smart. He is applied for flight job after flight job, and he never gets the job. And he was telling me about it, and he's all bummed out and confused because the only feedback he gets is that we've decided to go with another applicant with more experience. Dude, you're a wonderful person, and you do you, man. March to the beat of your own drummer. Individuality, awesome. But do you really need me to tell you why you are not getting hired? Again, to reiterate, I'm not saying that this is okay. I'm not saying that this is how I would do things. I'm not saying that if I was to be on an interview panel, that this is necessarily how I would be. I'm also not saying that this is not how I would be. I'm just saying that this is how it is in many places. Honestly, probably most flight teams. Simple self-awareness goes miles upon miles. I am just giving you what I think is honesty and a blunt reality opinion on this podcast. I am not a manager. And again, I am not a representative for any team. This is just my podcast, and these opinions are mine. I have not been on an interview panel for quite some time, but I do know from experience that some people apply, they come in for an interview, and they just kind of make everyone on the panel internally wince and recoil during the interview. So I guess what I am trying to say is to try and strive to not be one of the people who, as soon as the interview concludes, they get up, they walk out the door, and once the door closes, everyone pauses, looks at each other, and then says, what the hell was that? And then they want to know why they didn't get the job and what they could have done differently and what can I do better for the next time? I don't know. Consider a personality transplant. As the manager, I have talked to the panel and they recommended getting your FPC certification, taking the NRP course, doing PHTLS, maybe get an instructorship in ACLS or PALS, and also maybe do a complete 180-degree change of your entire affect and persona. I am soliloquizing. I am kind of being funny. Some may think, some may not think I'm being funny. Whatever. There's always going to be an angry commenter. But do let me remind people that if you don't get the job after the interview, yes, please self-reflect and ask yourself honestly, why might you not have gotten the job? I would also recommend straight up reaching back out and asking, hey, what was the deal and what you can do to be more marketable for next time there's an opening. But do keep in mind that one, there is a solid chance that they already knew who they were going to hire. And sometimes if the team felt like you didn't jive with them, that's just how life is going to be sometimes. Different people jive with different people and different groups. I have certainly encountered people and teams that I did not jive with. Through my travels, through PRN work I've done, agencies I've been associated with, classes I've taught where I didn't click with the crowd. And that's okay. That does happen. That's life. People are different, and that is how it's going to be. And maybe if you didn't get the job, maybe it's a good thing. I'm not just saying this to save face at the end of the podcast. I mean all of the stuff that I said, but maybe the issue is the team and it's not you. And maybe you don't know it yet, but maybe you dodged a big bullet and avoided being part of a toxic group. So I don't know if any of this helped, but in my opinion, that's the real tea. That's the stuff you aren't going to hear from HR or from the managers or read in some FPC or CFRN review guide. But as much as some people may get angry listening to this, or they may stomp their feet and get up on their moral pedestal and say, that's certainly not how my team operates, I maintain that I understand that this does sound cocky and arrogant, but I know what I'm talking about because I have been around the block. And I will end by invoking one of my favorite quotes that comes from the late author David Foster Wallace. And that is that the value of a real education has almost nothing to do with knowledge and everything to do with simple awareness. That's what I got, people. Thanks for tuning in.